Yes, it's safe to do your backdoor Roth IRA. Now let's get into some of the details. Congress has spent the last few months fighting about infrastructure and budget reconciliation bills. Republicans and moderate Democrats were successful in that they were able to break these two bills into two bills. The progressive Democrats were trying to lump it all into one bill, hopefully to try to increase the likelihood of it passing. But they broke it into two bills. They passed the infrastructure bill that was passed in a bipartisan manner with support from both parties, and most agreed that that was a pretty good bill. However, the other part of the bill, which included a lot of the social spending, there was a great deal of disagreement on. In fact, there wasn't a single Republican that was willing to support it. And in fact, not all of the Democrats were willing to support it. Now, that didn't matter to have a few defections in the House. They were still able to pass the bill through the House. However, when it got to the Senate, the fact that a couple of Democrats had some major problems with the bill spelled its doom. Remember, the Senate right now is split 50-50. It's 50 Republicans, 50 Democrats, with a tie-breaking vote for the vice president. However, basically that means if any Democrat says no to the bill, it's not going to pass. Well, there was a very prominent Democrat from West Virginia by the name of Joe Manchin who said, I'm not passing this bill. I don't think it's a good bill. I think it needs more work, etc. Between him and Kirsten Sinema of Arizona, it didn't pass. It was a major setback for the administration. And the reason that it didn't pass, aside from those two senators being against it, was that they were trying to pass it through budget reconciliation. Now, budget reconciliation is a process where, by the Senate rules, the bill has to be revenue neutral. So whatever additional expenses you put in there, you also have to raise taxes by a supposedly equal amount. And that's a tall order for such a large spending bill. And so that caused him to really not like it. Part of it was basically Senator Manchin was correctly pointing out that the bill really wasn't going to be revenue neutral. It was a bunch of sleight of hand tricks to try to pay for it. Now, if they hadn't tried to pass it through budget reconciliation, then it could have been filibustered, meaning that Republicans could have stopped the bill. And so that was their only option, was to pass it through this budget reconciliation process without making significant changes to the bill. The Trump administration passed a pretty significant law through budget reconciliation. The 2018 tax cuts were passed through budget reconciliation. But it was not quite as closely divided in the Senate back then. And so I guess President Biden thought, and his administration thought, maybe they could get this through. It did not work out. Now, they're kind of spinning it that, hey, we're just going to get started on it again in the first couple months of 2022 and get this thing done. But there's a lot of people skeptical out there that because they didn't get it done in 2021, they're probably not going to get it done at all, at least in any sort of similar form to what it was when they were talking about it in the Senate late last year. Now, Congress can always do whatever it wants. It can pass this bill in 2022. I think it's less likely that it's going to be passed at all. In fact, I'd give it probably 75% chance that this bill doesn't pass at all. If it does pass, it's most likely that they're going to put the tax law changes off until 2023. It's just the cleanest way to do it, right? To start it on January 1st, 2023. They might make it so that those tax changes happen as soon as the bill passes. So if it passes in March or April or May or whatever, maybe that's when these tax changes take place. But most likely they push it off to the end of the year. It's very unlikely that they're going to make these tax law changes retroactive to the 1st of 2022. It could happen. Congress can do whatever it wants. They have passed retroactive taxes in the past, but I'd give that a 1% chance. I just don't see that happening. And so under any situation other than that retroactive change, to bring it back to start on the 1st of January 2022, the best thing to do with your backdoor Roths, et cetera, is to do them now. That way, if the law changes, you're good. If the law doesn't change, you're good, right? And if the law changes such that it becomes illegal at mid-year, you'll be really glad you did it early in the year. But if they do it retroactively, such that you can't do it in 2022, despite the fact that they don't pass the law till halfway through 2022, then they've also got to provide another change to the law, which is to allow you to undo it. Because right now, under current law, you cannot recharacterize a Roth conversion, which is an important step in the Backdoor Roth IRA process. And so they would have to change that law to allow you to, those of us who have already done it, to undo it. And I just don't see that happening. I don't think it's going to happen. So if you like doing backdoor Roth IRAs, if you do it every year, nothing's changed. The law has not changed. You can still do a backdoor Roth IRA for yourself and your spouse. And so I've already started mine. By the time you hear this, I'm recording this on the 3rd of January. By the time you hear this next week, mine's going to be complete. Another thing that tax law was going to change was to get rid of mega backdoor Roth IRAs, which is something that Katie and I have been doing the last few years. Well, the law didn't pass. And so that's still legal too. So we're doing that this month as well for the same reason. Okay. Now here's the promise I'll make to you. If it changes retroactively, I think this is very unlikely, but if it changes retroactively, I will do a blog post that walks you through step by step how to undo your backdoor Roth IRA. And you can do it together with me. Otherwise, I would not give any fear to going ahead and doing your backdoor Roth IRA. I don't see any need to wait a few months to see what Congress does. I think there's risk that they could pass it and outlaw the backdoor Roth IRA at mid-year. If you wait, you might miss the opportunity to do it for 2022. I think that risk is a lot higher than the risk of it being retroactively implemented to the 1st of January. All right. Hope that's helpful to you. Anyway, what they were talking about in the bill that did not pass was making it so that you cannot do conversions of after-tax money, which affects both the backdoor Roth IRA process as well as the mega backdoor Roth IRA process. They're also going to outlaw all Roth conversions for anybody making $400,000 or more. There were a lot of other changes in it. I was grateful for some of them. The talk about changing the estate tax exemption was enough to get me off my duff to go do some serious estate planning. But hopefully you didn't do anything out of fear of this bill passing that you now regret. Okay. Hope that's helpful as far as the backdoor Roth IRA. I'm doing mine. I think most white coat investors are doing theirs. I would not necessarily wait to do it. If they make it retroactively illegal, I will show you how to undo it.
My dad, your host, Dr. Dolly, is a practicing emergency physician, blogger, author, and podcaster. He is not a licensed accountant, attorney, or financial advisor, so this podcast is for your entertainment and information only and should not be considered official, personalized financial advice.